Welcome to the Keep Baseball Great podcast, where we're all about reminding baseball fans why they love the game. In this episode, we're going to talk with Robbie Aronson, who is an artist and owner of the Matchsticks Company apparel brand. We're going to talk a little design, we're going to talk a little baseball, but mostly we're going to talk about how the baseball community, his parents, and some lifelong teammates have shaped his love for baseball. So sit back and hope you enjoy. Well, hey, Robbie, thanks so much for joining me on the Keep Baseball Great podcast. It's awesome to have you on. I look forward to talking with you.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. I'm happy to be on and kind of watching you from afar and hoping one day you'd reach out and we can chat. Knowing you're a designer and all, I think there's a lot we can talk about here.
Yeah, for sure. I likewise on following you. I heard about you from Field of Choice Goods, all the work you've done for them, but and we'll talk more about this down the road, but some of the awesome stuff that you've been doing for yourself. And so just being able to, with this podcast, I've been able to talk with several designers that are also baseball friends, and I'm been love hearing the stories on how that connects, how design connects with baseball. And I know obviously with what you do, that happens a lot. And so before we jump into our 5 questions, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, why you do it, and then we can kind of talk a little bit more about design and baseball too.
Sure. Yeah. So Robbie Aronson, I grew up playing baseball like most baseball fans to a certain extent, and then around high school, I got really serious about it and about the game, not really, or about playing the game, not necessarily the sport and like the history and all that. So I played scout ball and decided that I'm not good enough to be in the bigs, and I didn't want to travel via bus around the country several times. So I decided to go to art school, and I was doodling and I was getting terrible grades because I was drawing on all my homework, and so I was like, I figure that's a good thing to explore. And so I went to art school and got a degree, and then I've been working as a designer for 10 plus years. And couple years ago, I saw people designing baseball and football and basketball stuff on Instagram and picked it up and started my own version of that with just baseball. Work Head of creative for FC Goods, the vintage baseball glove wallet company. So I do pretty much everything you've seen from them. Visually has been me. Sorry, my light just went out. And then, and then during quarantine, I started my own baseball apparel brand called Matchsticks, and just trying to get people wearing baseball stuff and appreciating the game like I do.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that story. Everyone's baseball story is obviously a little bit different, but just hearing kind of your story and how that unfolds and playing baseball. I never got to even play high school, but I just always loved the game. But it wasn't until I was older until I like really appreciated the game, the
Yeah.
history and all that stuff behind it. But then even more so, the design aspect. And I don't know, I don't know how old you are, but my age, I grew up like in the 80s and then 90s, and so for some reason, like that era of art, baseball art, whether it was baseball cards or the posters that were on the wall, like some of the art stuff you do on your Instagram reminds me of that kind of stuff, just like real cool baseball posters. But like, what do you think it is with that era and art that kind of collides with baseball?
It's funny you say that because so I am definitely the same era as you.
Okay, okay. I didn't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah, definitely a '90s kid, but born in the '80s. It's funny you bring up that my work reminds you of that because I didn't set out with that in mind. And I don't know if you know Peter Chen from Jumbotron Art.
Yeah, actually, just did a podcast with him last week, and
Okay.
so kind of similar stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
He told me, like, so I was messaging back and forth with him on Instagram, and he was like, "Yeah, your stuff reminds me of '90s baseball posters." I'm like, "Interesting." So that's two people that called that out. So
I don't
um,
know. I don't know if it's the style of it, but it's just more of the idea of the poster itself. Obviously, there's some really fun '90s posters out there, but the style and the idea of it reminds me of it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're even making baseball posters for kids to hang up in their rooms anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, the '90s baseball to me is just like some of the, it's like post the gimmicky uniforms, but still kind of fun stuff that is unique looks that teams had, but it wasn't like the craziness that like the '70s saw in uniforms.
Right, right. And I mean, we're even seeing now, like your hat is a testament to that, kind of the bringing back some of those awesome color combos, right?
Yeah,
So probably 2000s and 2010, the colors got really drab. Um,
everything was white and gray.
yeah, dark. And now we're kind of seeing this revitalization of these bright, fun colors that I was like, oh man, I remember that powder blue.
Yeah, it's cool to see the modern uniform technology with the retro inspired
Yeah,
designs.
yeah. There's definitely some that don't need to come back, but there's
The
some really,
tequila
really good
sunrise.
color combos. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
It's funny because I'm a big Angel fan,
okay.
and they have just been the most boring. Like everyone rolls out their like throwbacks, and the Angels wear like one game out of the year they'll wear like the like CA logo or like the A with the yellow halo around it. But it's like some of these guys do it weekly. Some of the teams do it weekly, and the Angels do it like one weekend a year or one game a year, and it's just like come on.
Yeah, I know so I'm in DFW Rangers fan, so I know they had I think it was every Friday they did the Powder Blues.
Okay, this
They,
past
yeah, yeah,
that's right.
which was the first year that they kind of unveiled a new uniform look, but
Yeah, Lance Lynn, even though he's no longer there, but Lance Lynn and the Powder Blues is a sight to see.
oh man, isn't it? What a bulldog on the mound, just like you kind of look at these guys who are just ripped and buff, and then you Lance Lynn out there, he's a round figure, but he's just a beast.
The Bartolo effect,
Oh man, yeah, yeah, those two guys. That's awesome. Well, that's cool. Yeah, so hopefully through these 5 questions that Keep Baseball Great always ask, we're going to learn a little bit more about you and why you love the game. So if you're ready, we can jump in to those questions.
I'm all ready. I wrote down my responses so I didn't forget
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I wrote down the questions if that tells you anything. So awesome. So the first one is the history of the game. Like I said before, it wasn't until later, in my, adulthood when I was like, man, there's just baseball has such a rich history that I love passing it on to my son and just kind of telling him about the history of it, and just it makes me love the game so much more. So I love to ask people what their favorite historical baseball moment is and why.
Sure. And I would guess that your answers to this are probably consistent with what team they like. Uh,
Right.
it's for me, it's hard not to say the '02 Angels when they won it all. I went to some of the playoff games. Didn't go to the series, but I went to some of I think I forget how early in the playoffs it was, but one of the DS or the CS, and so got to experience that World Series or the road to the World Series culture. So um, that's hard to ignore. However, if I had a time machine and because I'm a lot like you, I picked up an appreciation for the history of the game. Like I've known Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson and like the heavy hitters of baseball past.
Right.
I've known about them forever, but it wasn't until mainly when I started working with FC Goods that I started getting really deep
Mm.
into that vintage world. But if I could hop in a time machine and go somewhere, I would go to Ebbets Field and watch Jackie play. And I just think that's baseball's greatest cathedral, and to see a guy who has done more for baseball, arguably more for baseball than
Yeah.
humankind, at least in this world, it'd be pretty surreal to see that.
Yeah, yeah, man, I'm with you. There, I kind of have these categories of favorite moments, and they're like uh, era that I've lived in moments. But then, yeah, those past moments. but I just don't, it's really hard to comprehend. You get to see black and white video of some of the stuff and movies made of it, but just being able to experience a game like that, or even the players, just to see what it was like, would have been phenomenal.
And I think back then, and this is the testament to what Jackie did for the sport. But if you think back to like my argument for is Mike Trout better than Babe Ruth, and every argument over beers about this is that Mike Trout faces guys like Aroldis Chapman and Jacob DeGrom. Like Babe Ruth was not facing these types of these
No.
specimens of people. It's like so. But again, I know the whole playing field was a little bit lower, but just the differences between guys like Babe Ruth or Jackie and the pitchers he was facing. If you subtract out some of the all-time greats that played during that era as well, but almost every team has a guy who could have been, first ballot Hall of Famer back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
that contrast to me is so interesting. I'd love to see that play out in person.
Yeah, yeah. Even yeah, I mean, you can almost do that era by era, sort of, with
Sure,
each kind of guy that stands out in that era, Ken Griffey to Mike Trout,
sure.
and so forth. But no, that's a good point. I love. Uh, I don't like the conversations of who's the greatest, because I'm like you. It's like it's too hard to compare.
It's totally
But it's a fun conversation nonetheless. So.
and beer always feels this to be way more interesting than they
Oh,
should be.
100%, 100%. It brings out points that I probably would never bring out before. Well, cool. So the next one is just all about family and friends. I know being able to experience games, or watching my son play, just makes me appreciate the game and love it. I've It's funny. I've been trying to get my son to a playoff game, because I just keep telling him, like, the atmosphere is 100 times different than just a normal game. We got to go to Game 3 of the World Series this year because it was in Arlington, but the fan capacity was, I can't remember what it was. It was less than 50%, and so didn't have the same vibe, but it was still nonetheless a really cool experience with him.
I remember you had posted that you guys went. As
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, it's a trek for me, but we had the series before that up the road here in LA.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a cool experience, different, but it was really cool. But my question to you is, tell me some of your greatest baseball moments that you've been able to have with family and friends, just kind of stick in your mind and you always remember.
Sure. So uh, I have a buddy of mine who he was a groomsman in my wedding, and he actually moved back into the neighborhood I grew up in, and he still lives down the street.
Oh,
And
cool.
so we're like childhood best friends. We played t-ball together. Like we basically played all the way up through high school together. He played center, I pitched, and it was just like it started with him, and then there's like the whole cast of that the team that every single year we played in the same league, and then we went to high school, we all played on the same team, and after high school we played Sunday league men's baseball together. Not everybody, but like it trickled down to the guys who still wanted to do it. But uh, and when I got into high school, there's that 4 years of different players that you kind of play with at different grades, and those guys to me, like I still play fantasy baseball with them, and it's just there will be like brothers to me forever. And so like any really fun baseball experience I have usually includes those guys, whether it's on the field or off, because we go to games together, and
Yeah.
we get together and watch games in garages and drink beers and stuff. So it's I think that's pretty standard, across baseball fans who are deep into it. But I think that story for me, or just the experience that I've had with them, um, it's kind of one of those thick and thin, through thick and thin moments.
Yeah.
And kind of in the background during that whole time, my parents were super involved in my baseball career. My mom was the president of our little league. Well, she switched from little league to pony league.
Nice.
She was the president of the booster club in high school, and so they were both. My parents were super supportive. My dad coached me, and he'll tell you he's a terrible coach. He says he's the reason I'm not playing anymore. but their support of and pushing me, like when I would have a terrible game and not want to play anymore, like you made a commitment to your team, you got to get out there. And I think that a lot of the passion I have for the game and understanding the slumps and understanding the losing streaks comes from them pushing me through to,
Mm. Well, that's good to hear. My son is 14. He's playing 14U baseball, and so I'm your parents right now, hoping that I come out on the other side of like you, just being thankful of, because it's a cool experience getting to watch him play, and then I have an older daughter who plays volleyball, just being involved in their sports. But it's also, trying to find that balance of uh, pushing them, but also helping them have fun along the way.
yeah, make it their experiences and not you living
Right.
vicariously.
Right. Yeah. Like, it wasn't that fun, and they're like,
What's for
yeah. Well, I had a great time.
yeah.
I didn't strike out, but yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I've asked this question to a few people on the podcast, and I just love hearing the idea of teammates, and then the longevity of their friendships come out of that. And one of the shirts I've created on Keep Baseball Great is, friends get remembered, but teammates never die. And so it's just that mantra of like, man, once you go through a season or a game, or you battle with someone throughout, a period of time, you just develop this friendship that is, it's really deep. And obviously that makes baseball great. So
It's a pretty cool thing. And I just kind of thinking back on my response and listening to what you just said is like, I think I take it for granted, just the like that group of guys, like some of them I haven't talked to in over a year. I mean, 2020 was a hard year to do anything with anybody, but
yeah.
but I know that the minute it's a little more, normal and to go out, like you pick right back up where you left off because their history,
Yeah.
what they've been up to, yeah, social media helps with kind of keeping in touch with people, but yeah, it's just this, time is not wasted, between, you just don't lose context of who they are, what they're doing, because
Yeah.
that bond is pretty close.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, kind of along those same lines of your parents and being involved, I know life lessons are a big part of, me now, especially trying to walk with my son playing sports, trying to teach him life lessons along the way. It's something I didn't really pick up until later. Like, man, I should be less of a, hard-nosed coach and more of a like, hey, there's some life lessons to be learned here. But what are some good life lessons that you've been able to just grab onto through baseball along your journey?
I think that so I kind of read this question as the first things that came to mind were there were two coaches that I had, like, enough crapping on my dad. He knows how it is, but real coaches. He totally understands that his coaching versus other coaches I've had. But I've had a handful of coaches throughout my career, and there are two that stand out to me that I probably learned the most from. One of them was the hard-nosed coach that was like, people were scared of. Not that he was going to do anything to you. Like, he wasn't a jerk. He was a nice enough guy, but it's the amount of respect that he, like, just that he earned for himself, but also that he instilled in us for the game. Like, we have this ongoing joke, and weird coincidental small story is he coached me. He was really close to my family. Then he like moved away for like 10 years and then moved back, started dating this lady who ended up being my brother's sister-in-law.
Oh,
And
no
so
way.
it was weird. And like they showed up at the same place together. It was like, and my brother was wearing a hat kind of like sideways or something like that. And he saw him get on the bus, or they were going to a football game. And he spun his hat around because he's like, I'm going to get in trouble for having my hat backwards. Our whole team of players who played for this guy all would do the same thing: spin your hat when he walks around, And so I think that just lessons learned is that when you have a group of people that rely on you for something, and this applies to work,
Mm,
friendships, and family, um, that if you have a group of people relying on you, that you respect the greater good, like the cause that you're trying to accomplish, whether that's making money for your business or making money for your family or whatever. Is like when you have people depending on you, um, put yourself in a place to be a good teammate, right? And so I think
mm,
that he does that in a way that is overly aggressive, but at the same time we understand where it's coming from. We never took offense to it. And then this other coach who was kind of the living legend baseball coach in our city that I grew up in, and he did the exact same thing at a really more passive approach. Like the guys on our high school team who never hustled and were too good for the team, when he showed up, they hustled.
mm,
Like he would just come and help out one day, and they would hustle all the way through first base. And so I think that for me, the contrast between those two guys is just like one guy did it, intense, and one guy did it like it's kind of like the I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, with and so the lesson, I guess, the long way around that answer is that the lesson learned there, I still think comes back to being accountable, for a group of people. There's very, very few things you do on your own in life,
mm.
right? There's always a cast or a team that helps you accomplish that stuff. And so not letting them down, I think I learned from being the Diamond with having coaches like that who made that impact.
Yeah, man, that's good. You know, with this question, we get, I get a lot of the same similar answers because there's a lot of great life lessons that you learn through baseball, but that perspective is really cool. Just for me thinking through, being a dad, and then because I work for myself. It's not like I, have a company, but my family relies on me, and so just kind of thinking through that process too is important. Same for my kids have had the gamut of coaches, and one's not better than the other. It's just different, right? And so teaching them to grab things from whatever coach is their coach at the moment, and not discarding one just because they don't like them or you don't like how they do something. So
I would probably say for the most part, most coaches are in a position because they have something to offer, right? And
right,
so
right.
you can, not every situation is ideal to be in, but like learn what you can from those situations. And, what good or bad, there's something to learn in
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's cool. Well, cool. So the next question is giving back. And so kind of as I was going through, what I love about baseball, it's a big part of it is giving back. And it's just seeing how people from little league coaches to dads to MLB players using their platform to give back. And I've even been able to see artists like you be able to give back with your talents. So yeah, so give me what are some opportunities you've been able to give back, or maybe even someone giving to you through kind of that baseball community?
Sure. Um, so aside from like umpiring games, as a kid and you know, helping friends and stuff coach teams, more recently, I had the opportunity to participate in the Negro League Baseball Museum art show.
Mm,
The first one, they've done kind of two of them, and I participated as much as I could in the first one, and gave it a lot of effort. And then I kind of just snowballed that into their holiday one. And but basically, with that, for those not familiar, artists, designers, just there are about 100 different creators that participated and made original pieces of art. I made some apparel. I also did some of my the normal style of posters that I was making uh, in honor of the like Homestead Grays, the Kansas City Monarchs, and then the posters I did were Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, and we'd sell those, and percentages of proceeds from all those sales we donated back to the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City. And the president of that museum might be the nicest person in the world. like he is super accessible. He's right there to share stuff that I've designed and comment and like, and he's just, I'm like, I'm just some guy who makes posters for Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And he runs a museum of some of the most historic athletes ever, right? And so he takes the time out of his day, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that he does that for. And so to be able to, I mean, contribute anything to that cause of preserving that the legacy that these guys who at the time didn't, guys and girls at the time did not get, you know, the recognition they deserved at
Yeah.
all. To see the momentum that not just our art show created, but just outside of that, like to see what I was a part of and see a lot of other people getting back to the same cause was probably one of the more powerful things I've seen in my life. And then I've actually had the opportunity with some other companies and baseball players and stuff who've reached out to me via Instagram. Archie Bradley is one that was surprisingly talkative via like Instagram.
That's cool.
I'm having conversations with him, and just he liked my artwork. Then we started talking, and then Victor Rojas, who former Angels broadcaster, now minor league GM president, I think, for the Rangers, right? Yeah. He has his own baseball brand too, and he and I talked a lot. And you know, just I've had an opportunity to communicate with a lot of really cool people who are doing the same thing I'm trying to do. Is make baseball great, right?
That's right.
But yeah, it's just I've met a lot of really cool people, famous and not famous, just you know, doing you know the things that I'm doing with design.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've kind of just since starting this, like you said, it's there's a sense of community. It's like a small baseball community, whether you're a player or designer. I mean, obviously that's kind of the niche where I fall just because of my, you know, passions. But I feel a sense of just like, hey, yeah, let's collaborate or let's do something. Let's all come together to help or benefit XYZ, you know. And so I loved, you know, just being able to see that, especially on social media, but on other places too. So that's cool. You got to be a part of that.
Yeah, one other person I would be remiss if I didn't mention who has been a big part of the growth that I've had via social media is Xavier Scruggs. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
Former big leaguer, played a little bit with the Cardinals and the Marlins, but recently retired. He played Korean leagues too, or KBO, and recently retired. And I guess he's doing MLB Network radio shows and stuff. But super connected, super nice dude. But just reached out to me. I designed a poster for him, and then he just shared my name with everybody.
Wow.
But just a guy who has a platform and knows a lot of really cool people and is a really cool person himself. But he is doing some really cool things for baseball, for not necessarily just the game, but just for the community and giving back to the community. So if anyone doesn't follow him, check him out. He's an awesome dude. And
that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite you know, players, but also awards, Roberto Clemente Award. And so just that giving back aspect, I love it. So that's really cool. So the last question is easy probably, but it's all about fun, right? So, you know, the game was created to have fun, to compete. And it gets overshadowed a lot. Obviously, you know, I've got a son who plays, you know, 14U baseball, and the fun a lot of times is just zapped out of it. Like, it's so intense. So I like to remind him, like, hey, baseball is fun. Kids, keep it fun. But tell me, you know, some of your most fun moments, whether it's playing or just being a part of that you remember.
Sure. Yeah, I think every day that I think about baseball, I think about wanting to still be able to be out there playing. You know, it brings a lot of really cool opportunities and experiences, like we talked about with the teammates and friends. And but I kind of enjoy that it's a memory, that I can relive those the way
Mm.
they played out. And I know that if I went back, if I got the same group of guys together, went back out on the field, it would be a totally different experience and wouldn't live up to that. Right. And so I've kind of detached myself from the playing of the game emotionally. And I think that the things that have brought me the most opportunity and things that are most fulfilling to work on are the things I've done with FC Goods.
Mm.
I actually, this past week, we're preparing for a new limited edition wallet series coming up. And we haven't done a video shoot in a long time for obvious reasons with travel. But we did one. I organized it here and we shot it on my high school baseball field.
Oh, cool.
And with one of my former coaches who is now the head coach at the high school. And so it was like a walk down memory lane. It's a place that I live down the street from that I could go anytime.
Anytime, yeah.
And I haven't. And because there's a video shoot that I had organized, and I thought, oh, my high school. And so I went out there and I talked to the coach. I spent about a half hour before the shoot talking with him. He gave me a tour of what he's done different. And I'm just like, this is like it. He's introducing me back into my childhood, right? But it was such a cool experience. But I've also been able to, like, unfortunately I didn't go, but I had the opportunity last spring training to go and, rub shoulders, rub elbows, whatever that saying is, with an agency that represents a bunch of baseball players. They're having a party for spring training, and they invited us to come talk about the wallets. I didn't go. I was actually out in Arizona for spring training.
Oh no.
I was with my family, but just the cool opportunities that it's presented, not necessarily going places or meeting people, but just the projects in which I get to work on. It's something I've always wanted to do and never thought I'd be able to do. And now somebody else is paying me to do that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then also to your point, I have a almost 4-year-old daughter who, and then twins coming, and one of those is a boy. But my 4-year-old daughter is just as geeked when the Angel games are on, because she knows I'm super into it. She knows I'm going to be sitting at home watching. So when we went a couple years ago to spring training, a foul ball was hit, and the usher got the ball and gave it to her. And so I have this picture that was my cell phone wallpaper forever of her as like a little baby just holding in her hands this massive baseball, and it was just this, it was right when portrait mode on the iPhone came out too. So it was like the best picture.
Oh, nice.
So just seeing her get excited about something because she knows I'm so excited about it is also like, I think this is just a whole new chapter for baseball being fun for me.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, you're going to have so many great years coming up as your kids get older and they start understanding, where they're going and what they're doing at games and what that means to, a father-son, father-daughter relationship is really cool. So I look forward to those years for you. But not the twins part, man. Holy cow. Well, cool, dude. Thanks so much for answering those questions. It kind of gives me a glimpse on, what makes baseball great for you. I do want to talk a little bit more about the Matchsticks company, the t-shirt apparel. I want people to go check it out, but tell me a little bit deeper into, what's the name mean, what it's all about, and what you're doing.
The what does the name mean is the number one question and probably the number one problem I have with the brand. So always wanted to have a baseball or a clothing brand with baseball and do what I do for a living. I thought this is a perfect opportunity to marry the two as something I control. And so I was looking for something like, so baseballism is kind of served as the epitome of baseball apparel brands, right? And I have a love-hate relationship with baseballism. As a designer, I think their concepts are really cool. As a designer, I think they're great. As a baseball fan, I don't love it at all.
Really?
And so I was like, how can I do this? How can I do that my own way? And offer people who are similar-minded to me another option, right? Because I like what baseballism is doing. I think the world needs more baseball specific brands, right? And
Right.
Nike and all the big brands that just make equipment. So, so I started thinking, how do I keep it a little vintage inspired, but not be what FC Goods is? FC Goods is super vintage, and
Right.
so I'm like, how do I kind of bridge that gap? And FC Goods said to do apparel, and so that's kind of where I found myself living. And so it's like, okay, I need a name, and I don't want to call it, dugout gear or something, or something, on the nose. And so I started doing some deep research into what are some cool, maybe not so much used anymore terms from baseball. And so I found this after hours of Google searching, basically a baseball lexicon throughout time. Basically it's a dictionary of words.
That's cool.
And I stumbled across the matchsticks, and the definition for that was when a team scores one run in every inning. Back in the olden days, they used to keep score in chalk on the backstop.
Okay.
And when they had one spot or one tick in each thing, it looked like a row of matchsticks. So they'd say, "Oh, it's all matchsticks." And so I'm just like, "That's cool. Like that's really cool." And people are going to ask, "What does it mean?" And I'll have an opportunity to explain it. And then they just don't ask. They just, "I don't know what that is," and they skip over it. So, so that's the reason for it. And it kind of plays into the posts that I was doing on Instagram. I was trying to do one a day, and then I realized that was not sustainable.
Right.
But as I was doing these one by one, I'm like, that kind of matches that one every inning. And the two things are kind of going together. They're going to find out about the matchsticks through me. And so, but then now I'm just, I didn't want to make it so team specific. You can go get Rangers gear, almost anywhere in the world, and you're gonna have the big, Rangers logo across your chest, and like there's that exists. Why do I need that? So,
right.
How do I play a little bit more into the fan of the game, not so much the team? However, there is some team stuff sprinkled in there. Because you can't go to an Angel game and not wear a red shirt. So
right.
You have that option as well. That was the idea. And then I'm in the middle of rolling out a new poster series where I'm hand drawing certain players and doing limited edition runs of those. They're about a week long that I offer them, and if they sell out or or whenever that time ends, they're gone forever. So it's kind of a fun project I'm working on right now. But yeah, that's kind of what Matchsticks is, and hopefully that can turn into a little bit bigger of a thing where more people are wearing it, and we can go to events and go to a baseball game and see a bunch of shirts that have my logo on it. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, so this is
or have podcasts.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm a fan. I mean, obviously being a baseball fan and design, I love the different styles that kind of come out of that, and yours definitely has a unique style to it. And so, tell us the website real quick.
Yeah, thematchsticks.co.
.co. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll be sure to link to it and in all the notes and whatnot. But that's awesome. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you just spending some time with me and sharing a little bit about what you're doing. Tell people where to follow you on Instagram too, because either Matchsticks or Robbie, because you're posting a lot of cool stuff there too.
Either, both, hopefully, at Robbie Aronson and at the Matchsticks Co. Not a ton of content being shared across both of those except for these posters, but if you want baseball specific culture building stuff, go to the Matchsticks. If you want to just see 90s looking posters of baseball players, check Robbie Aronson out.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, and thanks for keeping baseball great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. A big thanks to Robbie for taking the time to jump on the podcast. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at Robbie Aronson and at the Matchsticks Co. You can also check out the website, thematchsticks.co. And thanks again for joining me on the Keep Baseball Great podcast. For now, thanks for keeping baseball great.